Alright, YouTube. In this video, I'm going to go over proper charging of your 12 volt, either flooded lead acid, AGM, or lithium iron phosphate, and go over what commonly happens to all batteries is a buildup of sulfation, which causes a loss of capacity. And here's where I believe my AGM batteries died, because they weren't charged properly. They're a little bit different than your flooded lead acid, which we're going to get into. So, sulfation directly affects your battery's capacity and your battery's performance. So, you might say, well, what can you do about sulfation? Well, the formation of sulfation happens whenever you discharge your lead acid battery. It doesn't matter what the instance is. Every time you discharge the battery, a little bit of sulfation happens, and when you recharge the battery, that sulfation goes away. Well, it's incomplete charge cycles which causes your battery to build up more and more sulfation. So, for example, like they give with this 100 amp hour battery, you discharge your 100 amp hour battery to 50%, but then you only recharge to 85%. Well, now 15% of the plates never get converted back to your active material. So now you just turned your 100 amp hour battery into an 85 amp hour battery. You see where this is going? So this is something that I didn't know about, but there's a process they call it equalizing. Now, here's where you're going to get a bunch of conflicting information on the internet. And honestly, I don't really know the answer to this question, because I've looked and there's answers all over the place. So some people say, absolutely not. You cannot equalize AGM batteries. You can do it to flooded lead acid batteries, but you can't do it to AGM. Well, then other sources say, yeah, you can just fine. Like this source says you can. Okay. You get on Google, and Google says you can, and they also say you can't. So, this one tells you what happens when you equalize it. It removes the sulfate crystals and reverses stratification, which in short term gets your capacity back. Okay. Then you ask Google, well, what's the process? Well, here's one answer. It says, according to most battery experts, I don't know who these experts are, you should equalize a 12 volt AGM 100 amp battery, 100 amp hour battery for about 1 to 2 hours at a voltage around 14.4. Okay, now that's one source. All right. Then you ask it again in a little bit different way. Now it'll tell you for a 12 volt AGM, you should do it for at 15.5 to 16 volts. Okay, so there's a very conflicting, information right there. Then I said, okay, well, what charge rate should I use? And it says, okay, you want to use 30% of the battery's rated capacity. I said, so you're saying 30 amps? And it says, yes, 30 amps. So Google is telling me I should slap the charger up to 16 volts and shove it in at 30 amps. Okay. Now, you can't do this with a regular charger. You have to buy a benchtop power supply to do this. Okay. And that's what I got. Benchtop power supply. So then I said more specific questions. I said, well, what does Interstate say? Because that's the batteries I have, Interstate. So this is what Interstate says, that it should charge the AGM batteries at a higher voltage for a short time to equalize them. What to do? You charge your battery up till it's fully charged. It reaches your float charge stage. Then you charge the battery higher voltage, such as 15.5 to 16.3 volts, for 6 to 8 hours. Then repeat this process 2 to 3 times if necessary, depending on your level of solvation. Obviously, you make sure it's not getting overheated and it's not leaking acid out everywhere. Okay? So that's what Interstate Battery recommends. Then I asked, well, what does Optima recommend, since I got an Optima battery too? Well, they got a completely different process. They want you to actually really discharge it down to 11.5 volts. Now, if we look at the chart, 11.5 volts is a really low state of charge for an AGM battery. That's pretty low. You're at a little bit less than 10%. So you do that, then you charge it back up again 2 to 3 times. So I'm assuming they want you to do this process 2 to 3 times. Okay? So conflicting information all over the place. I've read a bunch of these kind of studies. These are people right here, you know, this is their business, is charging batteries and whatnot. And I had some information I wanted to share out of here. You know, according to their studies, the primary cause for most battery failures is plate sulfation. Okay? Then it goes on to describe what exactly is happening during your discharge process and your charge process. But there's, you know, some interesting information. Now, these people are saying that you should do it at 15.2 volts with a low controlled current. And it only works with light sulfation. So if you remember the other paper, they said, oh, just slap 30 amps in it. Well, this one is saying a low current. I've seen currents, they say, okay, here we go. The low current they're talking about, sorry, is limited to 0.5 amp, and they want you to do this for up to 15 hours, you know? So you got one paper over there saying 1 to 2 hours at 14.4 volts. Then you got the Interstate Battery manufacturers, you know, they're saying they want you to do it at about 15.5 to 16.3 volts for 6 to 8 hours. They're saying, you know, 15 point whatever for at 0.5 amp for 15 hours. Yeah, so it's all over the place. All over the place. And I really wish that there was a solid, concrete answer to this question. So what I'm going to do is, when my new lithium iron phosphate batteries come in, I'm going to take those 2 AGM batteries that I have. Now, they're completely depleted. They're obviously heavy sulfated because they were 100 amp hour batteries. They've only got about 15 amp hours of capacity in it. So I'm going to take all this information. I've got 2 batteries, and we're just going to try it. We're going to take one battery. We're going to charge it up fully. Then we're just going to set the voltage power supply to 16 volts, crank it up to 30 amps, and let it ride and see what happens. Then we'll take some measurements and see how much capacity has come back. And then we'll do what these people say. They're saying, you know, 15.2 volts at 0.5 amp for 15 hours. All right? We'll try that out. And then we'll take some measurements and we'll see how much capacity is restored that way. And with lithium iron phosphate, none of this is really necessary. You don't have to worry about sulfation buildup because it's not the same kind of battery chemistry. The only thing you have to do to a lithium iron phosphate is what they call a balance charge every once in a while. So if you discharge 50 amp hours and you're not able to put a full 50 amp hour charge back into it right away, you know, and you're doing this weird cycle, happens a lot with solar. Every few months you have to do what they call a balance charge. And you have to get the battery up to 14.6, maybe 14.7, somewhere in there, and just let it sit. And the battery management system will equalize all the cells and make it good. But none of this old stuff with these old technology batteries applies. So the main point I wanted to share with you guys is I'm sharing my frustration because I try my best to use my batteries properly. And as you can see, there's clearly a wide range of what everybody says, well, this is the right thing to do, this is the right thing to do. Well, who do you listen to? You know, that's the thing I don't understand. So in the future, coming up next week or so, we're going to have a couple new videos coming out. One showing my old system, the way I've had it set up for over 10 years. And we're going to take that out. Going to upgrade my system to be able to handle the lithium iron phosphate batteries. And I'm going to make another video, like I said, we're going to test this. Which one works the best? You know, is it the medium voltage for at low amperage for, you know, long amount of time? Or is it the high voltage with high amperage for short amount of time? I really don't believe this one where it says 14.4 volts or whatever it was. Here we go, this one. I really don't believe this one because I have a smart battery charger and it already does this anyway. That's what it charges it to. So this, I really don't think has any credibility at all. But I'll be interested to know you guys' comments. Did any of you guys have experience with dealing with batteries for energy storage and inverter operation and all this? That's what I've been doing for years. I do construction. I power all my tools out of my truck, and I want to build my system so that I can just power my tools all day without running the truck. I don't want to run the truck. That defeats the whole purpose if I got to let my truck sit there and idle all day. So let me know what you guys think.